Hey, I'm Austin with United Truck Driving School. Today we're going to perform a Class A vehicle pre-trip inspection. Okay, I'm going to begin the A portion of my outside pre-trip. I'm going to begin checking my lights up top, headlights, turn signals, make sure they're proper color, not broken or damaged. Then I'm going to check my vehicle for leaks, make sure there's no leaks underneath the truck. Then I'm going to check the vehicle for leans on either side. Then I'm going to pop the hood and begin the engine compartment. First thing I'm going to check is my coolant reservoir. Make sure it's filled to the proper level, no cracks, no damages, not leaking. Then I'm going to check all my hoses. Make sure they're properly mounted, secured, not damaged, no cracks, not leaking. Then I'm going to check my water pump. Make sure it's properly mounted, secured, not damaged, working properly. It is belt driven with no more than 3/4 inch slack on the belt. Get to my driver's side. I'm going to check my air compressor. Make sure it's properly mounted and secured, not damaged, working properly, no leaks. It is gear driven. Check my power steering pump. Properly mounted and secured, not damaged, not leaking. It is also gear driven. I'm going to check my engine oil. Make sure my engine oil is filled to the proper level. Then I'm going to check my alternator. Make sure it's working properly, not bent, broken, or damaged. It is belt driven, and all the wires are tight and in place. Check all my hoses on the driver's side, make sure they're properly mounted and secured, not leaking. Then I'm going to check my power steering reservoir. Filled to the proper level, properly mounted and secured, not damaged, not leaking. Then I'm going to check my steering shaft for excessive play. Then I'm going to check my steering gearbox, make sure it's properly mounted and secured, not damaged. Check my steering gearbox hoses, properly mounted, secured, not damaged, not leaking. Then I'm going to check my pitman arm, make sure it's properly mounted and secured, not damaged. Check my castle nut and cotter pin, make sure they're properly mounted and secured, not damaged. Check my drag link, make sure it's properly mounted and secured, not damaged. Check my tie rod end, properly mounted and secured, not damaged. And my castle nut and cotter pin are all in place and tight, not damaged. I'm going to check my ABS wire, make sure it's properly mounted and secured, not damaged. Check my brake hose, make sure it's properly mounted and secured, not damaged. Check my brake chamber, properly mounted and secured, not damaged, not leaking. Check my slack adjuster and push rod, properly mounted and secured, not damaged, set at a 90-degree angle with no more than 1 inch play with the brakes released. Check my brake lining, make sure it's properly mounted and secured, not damaged, no less than 1/4 inch thickness. Check my brake drum, properly mounted and secured, not damaged, no bluing, no cracks from excessive heat. Check my steer tire, make sure it has at least 4 30-second tread depth. Make sure there's no cuts, no bulging, no damming on either side. Then I'm going to check, make sure I have proper air pressure with a tire pressure gauge. Then I'm going to check my rim. Make sure it's properly mounted and secured, no damage, no illegal welds. Check my lug nuts. Make sure they're all there, none missing, no rust streaks at the bottom to indicate looseness. Then I'm going to check my hub oil seal. Make sure it's filled to the proper level, not bent, broken, or damaged, not leaking. And this concludes my A portion. First thing on my B portion of my outside pre-trip, I would check my mirror. Make sure it's properly mounted and secured, all glass is intact, not bent, broken, or damaged. Next thing I would check is my door. Make sure it opens properly. Check the seal around the door, make sure it is intact, not bent, broken, or damaged. And then I'm gonna close it. Door's working properly. Then I have my steps. Make sure my steps are properly mounted and secured, not damaged. Check my light, make sure it's proper color, working properly, not damaged. My depth, I make sure the tank is properly mounted and secure and that the lid seal is intact, seals properly, tank and lid, properly mounted, secured, not leaking, not damaged. Fuel tank, make sure it's properly mounted, secured, not damaged, not leaking. Check my fuel lid. Make sure that the seal is intact, not bent, broken, damaged, or leaking. Check my exhaust system. Make sure it's properly mounted, secured, not damaged, not leaking. Make sure there is no black soot running down that would indicate leaks. Check my truck frame, properly mounted, secured, not damaged, no illegal welds. Check my drive shaft, properly mounted, secured, not damaged, no excessive play. Check my splash guard, properly mounted, secured, not damaged. Then I will check my suspension. I have my leaf spring mounts, properly mounted, secured, not damaged. Have my leaf springs, properly mounted, secured, not damaged, none missing. Check my airbag, properly mounted, secured, not damaged, no leaks. My shock absorber, properly mounted, secured, not damaged, no leaks. I'll check my brakes. Check my ABS wire and brake hose, properly mounted, secured, no damage, no leaks. I would check my brake chamber, properly mounted, secured, no damage, no leaks. Check my slack adjuster and push rod, set at a 90-degree angle, no more than 1 inch play with the brakes released. I would check my linings, make sure they are at least a 1/4 inch thickness, no damage. Check my brake drums, properly mounted, secured, no bluing, no cracks from excessive heat. I would check my tires. Make sure there's no debris and I have proper spacing between them. I would check my tread depth, 2 30-second tread depth. Make sure there's no cuts, no bulges on either tires. And I would check again with the tire gauge to see that they're at the proper PSI. I would check my rim. Make sure there's no damage, no illegal welds. Check my lug nuts, make sure they're all tight, all present, and make sure that there's no rust streaks that would indicate looseness. I would check my axle seal, properly mounted, secured, not damaged, no leaks. And the last part of my suspension, I would make sure my torque arm is properly mounted, secured, not damaged. I have my mud flap, properly mounted, secured, not damaged. And I have my brake lights and reverse lights and turn signals and hazards. Make sure they're properly mounted, secured, not damaged, and proper color. Okay, I'm going to begin the coupling portion of my outside pre-trip. I'm going to make sure that my emergency and service brake lines are properly mounted and secured to the truck and the trailer, and that they are not leaking. I'm going to check my electrical line, make sure they're properly mounted and secured to the truck and the trailer, not damaged. I'm going to make sure that I have a proper gap between my truck and my trailer, and a proper gap between my mud flap and my landing gear. Then I'm going to check my apron, make sure it's properly mounted, secured, not damaged. Make sure my fifth wheel properly mounted, secured, not damaged, proper grease, and make sure there's no gap in between my apron and my fifth wheel. I'm going to check my release arm and safety latch, make sure it is in the locked position. Then I'm going to check my mounting bolts, make sure they're all present, tight, none missing. And then I'm going to check my platform, properly mounted and secured, not damaged. Then I'm going to check that the locking jaws are around the shank of the kingpin, properly mounted and secured, not damaged. For the C portion of my outside pre-trip, I'd begin by checking the bulkhead of my trailer. Make sure it's properly mounted and secured, not damaged, no holes, all lights proper color and working order. Then I would check my landing gear. Make sure it's raised to the proper level. Make sure the handle is in the locked position. I would check all DOT tape on the whole length of the trailer. Make sure it's properly mounted, secured, not damaged. Then I would check the ribs and the frame of my trailer. Make sure it's properly mounted, secured, not damaged, and there's no holes in the floor. All in working order, properly mounted, secured. I would check my turn signal light. Make sure it's proper color, working properly, not bent, broken, or damaged. Check my DOT tape again the rest of the way of the trailer. Then I would check my torque arm, properly mounted, secured, not damaged, not broken. I would check my spring mounts, properly mounted, secured, not damaged. Check my leaf springs, properly mounted, secured, not damaged, none missing. And I would check my U-bolts, properly mounted, secured, not damaged. I would check my locking tandem, make sure the lever is in the lock position, make sure my pins are in place and in the lock position. Then I would check my brake chamber, properly mounted, secured, not damaged, not leaking. My brake hoses and ABS line, properly mounted, secured, not damaged, not leaking. I would check my slack adjuster and push rod, make sure it's set at a 90-degree angle, no more than 1 inch play with the brakes released. I would check my drum lining, make sure there's at least a 1/4 inch thickness. I would check my drums, make sure there's no excessive cracks or bluing from excessive heat. I would check my tires, make sure there's proper space in between them, no debris. Make sure there's at least 2 30-second tread depth. Make sure there's no cuts, no bulges on either tire, and then it's filled to the proper level with a tire gauge. I would check my rim, make sure it's properly mounted, secured, not damaged, no cracks, no illegal welds. My lug nuts, make sure they're all in place, none missing, not damaged, no rust streaks to indicate looseness. I would check my hub oil seal, make sure it's filled to the proper level, not leaking. I would check this axle the same way as I check that axle. I continue to check the side of my trailer, make sure there's no holes, no cracks, all DOT tape present. I would check my mud flap, make sure it's properly mounted, secured, no damage. I would check my door tie, make sure it's properly mounted, secured, not damaged. I would check my hinges, make sure they're all in place, none missing. My doors, properly mounted and secured, not damaged, in the lock position. Check my lights for proper color, all working properly. Check my DOT tape at the rear of my truck. No damage, everything's present. I would check this side the same way as I checked that side, and this concludes the C section of my test. Okay, I'm going to perform an exterior lights check. I'm going to turn the key on to accessory. Then I'm going to turn on my headlights. That's my high beams, my left turn signal, my right turn signal, and my four-way flashers. I'm going to check my left turn signal on the rear, my right turn signal on the rear, my four-way flashers on the rear, my tail lights on the rear, then my brake lights on the rear. And that concludes the exterior lights check. Okay, I'm going to perform a in-cab inspection. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check my seat belt for cuts or frays, make sure there's no damage, make sure it latches, unlatches, and then latch it back. Next thing I'm going to check is my fire extinguisher, make sure it's filled to the proper level and charged at 10 BC. Then I'm going to check my 3 reflected triangles, make sure they're all there, none missing. And I'm going to check for 6 fuses or circuit breakers, whichever the truck requires. Next thing I'm going to check is make sure I'm in neutral. I'm going to push the clutch to the floor and perform a safe start. Okay, first thing I'm going to check is I'm going to check my mirrors. Make sure my left mirror is properly mounted and secured, not bent, broken, or damaged. Check my right mirror, make sure it's properly mounted and secured. Then I'm going to check my windshield, make sure there's no cracks, no damages, sealed properly. Then I'm going to check my windshield wipers, make sure they are flush to the windshield, the rubber is in good shape. I'm going to check my washer fluid, make sure it's filled to the proper level. Then I'm gonna check my lights, I'm gonna check my low beams, then I'm gonna check my high beams. Check my left turn signal, check my right turn signal. Then I'm gonna check my four ways. Next, I'm gonna check my gauges. I'm gonna check my water temperature gauge, make sure it's rising to the proper level, not overheating. Then I'm gonna check my oil pressure gauge, make sure it's rising to the proper level. I'm gonna check my depth gauge, make sure it's filled to the proper level. Then I'm gonna check my voltmeter, make sure it's rising to the proper level, not overcharging. Next, I'm gonna check my primary and my secondary air gauge, make sure they're rising to the proper level of 120 to 140 PSI. Then I'm gonna check my city horn, my highway horn. Next, I'm gonna check my heater and my defrost. Fill up there, make sure my defrost is working properly. Turn it on floor heat. Make sure the floor heater is working properly. At this time, I'm going to perform a air brakes test. First test I'm going to perform is my trailer brake test. I'm going to push in my tractor brake test, put the truck in first gear and give it a gentle tug. Once I feel it tug, I know it's working properly. At this time, I'm going to check my tractor brakes. Pull my tractor brakes out, push in my trailer brakes, and give it a gentle tug. Alright, feel resistance so I know it's working properly. At this time, I'm going to do a service brake test. I'm going to push both my spring brakes in. I'm going to pull forward at 5 miles an hour and push the brake pedal and make sure that it doesn't pull left or right. Okay, did not pull left or right. It's working properly. Now I'm going to reach down and I'm going to cut the truck off with it in first gear. Let off the clutch and I'm going to turn the key on to accessory. Make sure my ABS light comes on and goes off properly. That ensures that it's working. First test I'm going to perform is the leakage rate test. I'm going to hold steady pressure on the brake pedal and make sure that I do not lose more than 4 PSI in 60 seconds. I will ask the tester to time me. Okay, I did not lose more than 4 PSI in 60 seconds. The next test I'm going to perform is my low air warning indicator. I'm going to pump on the pedal to 55 PSI and make sure that my low air warning indicator, a light and or buzzer, comes on at 55 PSI. At 55 PSI, my low air warning indicator did come on. It passed the test. Now I'm going to pump down to 40 PSI and make sure that both my emergency spring brakes engage. Both my spring brakes engaged at 20 PSI. At this time, I turn to the tester and say, I believe this concludes my in-cab inspection.